make any. Hey, FU Friday! Another episode of Go FUD Yourself. JD Gagnon here, and my good friend Ceara. What is up?
It's my favorite day.
Favorite day, FU Friday.
I love that I get to come to work and say FU.
I've got a really fun FU to start, but we'll wait until we launch Twitter Spaces to talk about it. But beyond my personal FU, what are we talking about? Who are we FUing today?
We're going to talk about BlackRock a lot, and this will be a little bit controversial between JD and I probably, but also it's interesting from the crypto space. I didn't set this up just so he and I could fight for half an hour. And then we have to talk about Prometheum because it's hot. And I don't know, I kind of don't want to talk about Prometheum because there's been a lot of really good Twitter Spaces this morning about it already that have been really impressive, and you should definitely go listen to some of those. I listened to All Roads Lead to Polygon this morning and a couple of other ones. And there are some very smart people with some very big opinions. And then there's us.
So the not smart people with some minor opinions. That's us. All right. Quick shout out to our friends at Swing.
Yeah.
Swing is a bridge aggregator, and they do some really cool stuff with cross-chain activities. So if you're a protocol looking to go multi-chain without having to deploy new contracts on every chain, they've got a cool solution. Vivek's a good friend, and I like this shirt. So here we are. Shout out to Swing. And with that, let's freaking go. All right, we are back. So my FU for today. So I'll set this story up quickly. First of all, my FU is to a 14-foot shark. So FU to that 14-foot shark. But here's the story. So we went tarpon fishing last night in Miami, which is like out in the ocean. Tarpon's like one of the best sport fish in the world because they're like on average, they're like somewhere between 60 and 200 pounds. Like they're huge fish, and they live in schools, and they're fairly predictable. When there's certain tide activities, you can figure out where they are. Anyways, so we're out there, but you fish at night in the dark. So I was getting seasick, of course, because I'm macho man and refuse to
You're a landlubber.
Well, I refuse to take Dramamine like everybody else. So I'm like, nah, I'm not going to get sick. And sure enough, in the dark, it's easy to get pretty sick. Anyways, so one of the guys we were fishing with, Patrick, he's been on the show before, catches a massive tarpon. And you could tell because he's like 6'4", probably 250 pounds. He's a big guy. My son was there too, which was hilarious because he got some tarpon on the hook too. But anyways, the one that Patrick caught was like, it pulls out the line. Like it sounds crazy. It's kind of a crazy experience. Anyways, you can just kind of see it because it's not that far from the boat. Probably 12 to 14 foot shark eats the tarpon on the boat. Yeah. And all you can see is this like thrashing. And Patrick said what felt like the heaviest fish he'd ever caught turned into 3 times the heaviest fish he's ever caught. It almost pulled him right out of the boat. It was unbelievable.
Honestly, it turned into a literal shark.
Yeah. So apparently the way that this works is there's like this area as you come out of the bay where the tide's coming out. Where all of the like shrimp and like little crabs and all of the little tiny fish, they all get sucked out. And so all these tarpon sit there and wait for them to come to them. The tarpon don't even have to chase them. The other fish just kind of swim towards them. Anyways, the sharks wait for injured tarpon. They just sit beyond the tarpon and wait for but when you have a tarpon on a hook, they're thrashing around, and that to a shark looks like they're injured. So bang. It was unbelievable. Like, so F you to that shark because you took his fish, but pretty cool story. Anyways, BCP's here. So cool. We've got Nikki here too. So
yeah, I'm not there because my internet and phone are having a time, but I will be soon.
Awesome. Okay. So we got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about, but
we got to talk about BlackRock since I'm not
about BlackRock, but let's do it. Let's hear what you're.
Well, no, I'm not live on Twitter. So you start. First of all, tell me why you love BlackRock. I mean, your name is based after them, right?
sort of. Yes and no, actually. There's a really long story of the Diamond Rock thing. It actually is not after BlackRock. It's not named after BlackRock. Anyways, we'll save that story for another day. I'm not in the last few years, I've kind of become less and less impressed with BlackRock. I mean, I think they have 11 trillion in assets under management. They're like, as far as I know, they're the biggest. They're the biggest asset manager in the world. 11 trillion is a lot. And so, anyways, they've been doing some really interesting stuff. Like when COVID happened, BlackRock's been pushing all this ESG stuff, which, I mean, I totally think that a very small sliver of the ESG thing is useful, but I don't think that the international stock markets should be beholden to that. And as we're seeing, Target, Bud Light, and many other large brands are succumbing to this pressure because they're getting different ratings on the exchanges because BlackRock and other asset managers are pushing this ESG thing. Why? Well, BlackRock is trying to shake up the current corporate structure globally, the financial structure globally. What they're doing that's been insanely crazy during COVID, when everybody was down and out and people were not able to make payments and all of these other things, BlackRock bought up an insane amount of residential real estate and commercial real estate, but mainly residential real estate. And again, put a little tin hat on here if you want to indulge me, but you put the tin hat on a little bit here. And what does that say? I mean, if you were to extrapolate this to what the World Economic Forum keeps talking about, and that is where most people won't own property, you'll just rent property, and it's better for you, trust me. The problem with BlackRock buying all of this kind of lower to middle types of residential real estate is it's driven the prices way up because there's no supply, and then they have near a monopoly on rental. Not actually a monopoly, but they have so many rentals that they can set the price, more or less. And so I find that insanely predatory. Like, we have antitrust laws in the US and in Canada and many other places that are supposed to protect against these monster companies having an unfettered power and control. And that's not what we're seeing here. And so, I mean, if you've been on Twitter in the last 48 hours, you've probably heard that BlackRock has now applied for a Bitcoin ETF. And the problem with this is that everybody else that's applied for a Bitcoin ETF has been declined.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if BlackRock gets approved just because of the leverage they have over the SEC, over the political class. They're massive political donors. It's a lot.
They don't typically get denied.
It's an awful lot of influence peddling, and I've got my little dog right here, so you can't see him on the screen, but I don't know if he's not feeling well or what's going on. He's acting super weird. Anyways.
All right. So a lot of people who tune in with us are crypto curious or finance curious, especially on LinkedIn. What does BlackRock being an asset manager mean? What does that mean to their day-to-day life?
Nothing to most people. They have a whole bunch of investment funds, mutual funds, hedge funds. They have a lot of investment products that are available to only sophisticated investors, only accredited investors. They have some products that are available to retail investors. They have real estate products. They have debt products. They have equities products. They have venture products. They have freaking everything.
Well, I think what does matter, JD, is that they own almost everything you buy, or at least a portion thereof.
Yeah, they're pretty much major holders in like
everything.
Everything.
And like you can't go to the grocery store and purchase a product that isn't partially owned by BlackRock or primarily owned by BlackRock. And
that's kind of crazy because, again, they have such an incredibly outsized amount of control and power over these institutions that, I mean, as a society, we're at the mercy of what they decide, as we're seeing with this ESG and a lot of the gender stuff and all of that has been pushed by these corporate interests, which is so strange. But what they're trying to do is shake up societal norms, and it's working, obviously.
Well, they're trying to divide us so that we keep buying.
So we keep buying. Yeah. So this whole thing is kind of crazy. I mean, Larry Fink is the CEO and I believe the founder of BlackRock.
He's the founder. There were 7 founders, and he's the only one remaining, to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, he's been, generally speaking, not bullish on crypto.
Yeah. So in 2017, he called Bitcoin an index of money laundering. Yeah. And then in 2022, when the bear started, he changed his tune.
Yeah. But they weren't like super big in moving into crypto. They were starting to buy some of the major blue chips, but like not in huge proportions. But as of late, maybe because of the potential inflationary pressure or de-dollarization or whatever the case is, they've been buying a whole bunch of Grayscale shares for their Bitcoin trust. And so they're, again, just slowly eating up control of different entities, even in the crypto space. If they're granted an ETF, it's going to be pretty obvious, I think, to everybody. We'll talk about Prometheum later and all of the controversy surrounding Prometheum.
Okay, so we probably should have seen this coming a little bit. In March, Larry Fink released his annual letter. His annual letter is basically where he like makes his own personal predictions, where he talks about his own proclivities, etc., related to what BlackRock is going to do. And he talked quite a bit about crypto. He talked about how the media is way too focused on Bitcoin. And then he also talked about how there are a variety of emerging markets that are going to take over crypto, basically, including Brazil. Brazil was his top one. And that we're, by being so obsessed with Bitcoin, that we're actually overlooking other major players. He named Avalanche among a couple of others. And so people weren't, I don't know how we didn't know from this particular letter and from the most recent conference that they had where they published their market report and so on and so forth. It's really obvious that they were going to move towards crypto, because in 2022, they had already started investing. In 2022, he came out and publicly said that he was actually going to be more bullish on it. We've seen a few different articles. We've even touched on them here about like BlackRock and Fidelity, or Microsoft and BlackRock, or whoever are starting to play in that crypto space, but they can only play in a way that they feel is legal, right? Because they are part of the law, essentially.
They are the law.
They are the law.
Oh, I forgot I didn't have my chain on.
Oh my God.
How can I do the pod without the chain?
So I don't know. It's something that we probably should have seen coming, but is still disturbing, especially if you're a true degen.
Well, I mean, this is like, okay, so we all talk about, when is institutional and enterprise adoption coming? And I've said all along that until we have some regulatory clarity, we're not going to see massive adoption. Now, we don't have great regulatory clarity yet, but what we do know is that Bitcoin has not been mentioned in any of this, neither has Ethereum recently. And so they're probably pretty confident that those two assets are, in their mind at least, not securities. And for that reason, they believe they understand the rules. Now, is BlackRock good for the space? Probably. I mean, it's probably a way.
Oh, come on. How is BlackRock good for this?
Just wait. It's probably going to be the first and easiest way for many people that want to get into the space but are concerned about a lot of the friction to do so via the ETF, via BlackRock products, via BlackRock investments, because they're eligible for 401ks and for IRAs and all of the retirement products. And
so we're just participating in the regular financial system again.
Yes, to a certain extent. I think
to its full extent.
Yeah, but I mean, this is and this is weird coming out of my mouth, which is probably why you were like, hey, we're going to disagree on this. It's weird coming out of my mouth because I think the future isn't DeFi and isn't TradFi. I think it's a hybrid. And at least the ETF case for now, to me, is sort of meeting in the middle. They're not trying to change Bitcoin or Ethereum yet. They're just trying to give access to people. I just don't like it because I feel like these large multinational institutions have an outsized amount of influence on regulators, while startups that are actually as or more beneficial to entrepreneurs, to people getting into the space, even Coinbase, Gemini, like DCG was trying, Grayscale was trying. Like there's a whole bunch of places that have been trying. MicroStrategy, I think, had an application in at one point. I can't remember. there's been a lot of ETF applications that have all been denied for market volatility reasons or lack of understanding or yada, yada, blah, blah. Well,
okay. So what does getting an ETF, an exchange traded fund, what does that do for BlackRock? What does it enable them to do that others can't do?
Well, it enables them to sell representative shares essentially in Bitcoin. So it allows them to put in their other product offerings or combine with their other product offerings the opportunity for the average BlackRock client to purchase Bitcoin without having to worry about custody, without having to worry about having a Bitcoin wallet and private keys and all of this other nonsense. So it does make the potential onboarding for kind of your run-of-the-mill average client of a financial institution. And we're going to see more and more of this. I mean, we talked about Onyx, which is JP Morgan, Goldman, and Microsoft. It's going to be more of the same, I think, when we start seeing these ecosystems. To think that the traditional finance space is just going to roll over and play dead and let us eat their entire lunch is, I think, a pipe dream. What I'm hopeful for is that the rules that are put in place are favorable both to incumbents and to new upstarts and to new participants in the space. I mean, for the average group to apply for an ETF, you can't. You don't have the money. The legal is insanely expensive. That is part of the problem. And BlackRock, on the other hand, I mean, it's a rounding error. And they've got teams of attorneys and they've got influence over the SEC and others that is unbelievable. And so
but that's exactly where this becomes problematic, right? We have all of these. Okay, if you want to talk about blockchain finance from the original concept, which was revolutionizing finance, revolutionizing efficiency, distributed ledger technology, et cetera. Yes, we're obviously going to get TradFi to play in it eventually because we can't have a monetary system that half the world has decided not to play in. But we've already been participating and denied wholeheartedly by regulatory bodies several times. And so this like special treatment, although it could set precedent, is also setting the precedent that they're only going to let TradFi play in the market soon.
And we've been saying that forever. Like it kind of seems
I know,
like
but I'm still mad about it.
Yeah, I don't love it, but it again, we should, in my opinion, call a spade, because there's nothing we can do about it. At the very least, once one is approved, then the arguments that they've made to not approve the other ones are no longer valid, generally speaking, unless they come up with some weird thing that BlackRock is better than everybody, which maybe is the case. Okay, so here's another stat. So the World Bank suggests that about 76%, this is from the World Bank, that 76% of the world's population is currently a client of TradFi institutions one way or another. BlackRock, JP, Goldman, HSBC, Bank of America, like there's a lot of these large international banking institutions, Barclays, which is I think no longer, but anyways, all of these other banks, that's where the vast majority of these people deal with their finances. And so
do you think Barclays isn't a bank anymore?
Yeah, one of the major European banks went under recently.
It's not Barclays.
Maybe it was Deutsche Bank. I can't remember. There's been too many companies going under that I don't keep track of.
Also has not gone under. I'm sorry.
Some big bank in Europe.
BNP.
I don't remember.
I think it was Credit Suisse. Is that what you're thinking?
Oh yeah, Credit Suisse. Okay, sure. Anyways, there's BNP Paribas. Like there's a whole bunch of large banks that capture a lot of that user base. So there's kind of two options, right? If you're thinking, if what we want is for the technology in the space to expand, we need to attract new participants. I've been saying this for quite a while now that I think, with fairly good evidence to back it up, that the vast majority of the early adopters and innovators are already here. We're already in the space. So unless all we do is take from one participant and give to another, which is a zero-sum game, we need new entrants into the space. Now, the argument is the vast majority of new entrants are probably going to do so via some other financial institution. So if we're asking them to leave Deutsche Bank with their money, transfer their money out with all the headaches that entails, that they harass you and they drag their feet and the transfers take forever. And taxable stuff sometimes, and like
those are all great reasons to join crypto.
All great reasons to join crypto, but expecting those people to do that when they haven't already, in my opinion, is incorrect. It's a false expectation. And so, yes, I don't love this. Honestly, I don't love TradFi incumbents having an outsized influence in crypto. But I think if what we're concerned with and if what we want is the space to grow, we're going to have to see traditional institutions participating, and this just happens to be the largest traditional finance institution.
I'm gonna make the worst like comparison. Okay,
let's do it. Let's hear
that
it.
I'm so old. Also, Facebook was really fun until you got business pages. Facebook had a lot of use. It was great for communities. It was great to connect with people. It had its own unique use. It was something we hadn't quite done before, even though it was based off of social media that had already existed, something that we hadn't quite done before. And then we got business pages, and now Facebook is just marketplace. And although it took a few years for that to happen, that is what happened. And this is the same thing. We're going to lose all of our democratization. We're going to see lots of market manipulation. There's going to be a wild lack of transparency aside from the distributed ledger, basically. And we're going to end up with BlackRock having holdings in absolutely everything and manipulating it exactly like they do now. So like, is that, I don't know, does that really set us apart? Is there any point in continuing?
Yeah, like I know that that's probably not the, utopian outcome that we all desire. That being said, if Facebook would not have found a way to monetize, Facebook would not exist. So if we don't find a way to expand, blockchain technology will still probably exist. But crypto as we know it, where most of us have the vast majority of our net worth, if we're building in the space or playing in the space meaningfully, it's not going to survive unless we find new inflows of significant capital and meaningful participation, meaningful innovation from people with deep pockets. Yeah, does it suck for people like us who, have been self-financing many of our companies and are really excited to have grown to the point that we have to have, positive revenues and so on, without outside funding or without much outside funding. It makes it really difficult for us because now to compete, we have to, be able to tap into significant financial resources because all of these institutions, JP, Goldman, Microsoft, now BlackRock, I mean, they've got more money than any of us will ever have. And so it makes it a lot more difficult to compete. The way that we should be interpreting that, though, is we're a hell of a lot more agile still. A lot of these institutions take forever.
Yeah, but each of our companies are a rounding error, as you put it.
Yes.
But although we're more agile, we also have much larger consequences.
Yeah, I mean, we do slightly disagree. I'm trying to be positive on this one because it's happening anyway.
I'm not.
So I'm trying not to be funny, which is weird because it's FU Friday. But we can still say FU BlackRock because
FU BlackRock.
You've kind of ruined TradFi in a lot of ways. You've added to TradFi in a lot of ways, don't get me wrong. Sure. But you've ruined TradFi in a lot of ways. You're really fucking with society. So for that reason, and the fact that you're coming into crypto probably with similar intentions, FU BlackRock.
FU BlackRock. Okay, Prometheum, the poster child. I'm really funny today. I almost spit that out of my mouth.
So this is very strange because, first of all, there's a lot of established existing entities and startups that were not invited to testify in Congress in the US, and a startup has outsized influence, it seems, with policymakers, which seems strange. There has been, similar to the ETF thing that I was just talking about, there has been many crypto platforms that have tried for years and spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands into the millions trying to get licenses for a special purpose broker dealer to deal with crypto assets. Everybody's been declined. And now more than ever, the scrutiny from the SEC is suggesting that we're not going to be approved. Most institutions aren't. But somehow, in the wake of all of these lawsuits and all of the uncertainty, the SEC approves a brand new startup that just raised $50 million out of thin air. Like if you want to have a conspiracy theory, this is a good place to have one, I think, because this seems, for someone that is very interested and follows very closely the regulated space, if you can't tell from every bloody episode lately, something that
other news.
something that I'm naturally deeply interested in because I have a history in TradFi, and I've always believed that there's going to be a hybrid of the, kind of the two spaces. This is very shocking. Like, to me, this seems very weird, especially now. Right now, in the wake of so much litigation, uncertainty, negative sentiment coming from all the regulators, way more so than ever before. Even Coinbase has applied for special purpose broker dealers and not received them. And then somehow Prometheum comes out of nowhere and becomes like the house on the hill that we're all supposed to aspire to be. Again, I don't hate this in some ways because it paves the path for others. You could say, hey, these guys did this. They were approved. We want to do the same fucking thing. So you shouldn't be able to not approve us unless there's, some, I don't know, skeleton.
Well, okay. So the concept here, even with Coinbase, is that Coinbase has said, please provide us guidelines, whereas Prometheum, I keep wanting to say Prometheum has taken the stance that they're just going to act under the securities laws. So there's quite a few, especially on crypto Twitter, there's quite a few things about them getting like preferential treatment and what have you. And it's like, well, yeah, of course they're getting preferential treatment. They're following the rules that Gary Gensler wants you to follow. It's kind of like being at the dinner table and not eating your peas and your mom's mad at you. Like, you already know she's going to be mad that you're not eating your peas. You already know the SEC is going to be mad that you're not treating it like a security. Whereas Prometheum just ate the fucking peas and moved on with their life.
That's only been a thing in the last 15 minutes, though.
It has not. It's not
a lot of people have applied for securities-focused licensing through the SEC.
But they didn't want to say that their tokens were securities.
Right. Coinbase, yes. But there's many, many other groups that have applied for securities-focused licensing. Now, anyways, the reason I say up until 15 minutes ago is that what Coinbase has been trying to get is an answer on, do we think this shit is securities? And the SEC, only until 10 minutes ago, has not given an answer on that. All of a sudden now they're saying, yeah, we think everything's a security. Meanwhile, Prometheum gets approved.
From the SEC's perspective, they've been saying that the whole time.
Kind of.
They have. Go read all their documents. Their documents are like, securities laws already exist. Securities laws already exist.
I don't think we've ever been so divided on an episode where we're like this divided on who to say fuck you to. Pardon my French.
I mean, I still want to say fuck you to the SEC, and I still want to say fuck you to Prometheum for like kiboshing all of the hard work that people like Coinbase are doing by setting precedent in their lawsuits. But also, I see why it's happening. And I think from a business perspective, Prometheum was like, we're not going to be successful unless we take a USP, a unique selling proposition. And our USP is going to be that we're going to be regulated first. Smart.
We can agree to disagree. F you to all of them. F you, Larry Fink.
All of them.
F you, BlackRock. F you, Prometheum. And especially, it wouldn't be a good F you Friday without F you to the SEC.
Yeah.
Guys, we're a live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 Eastern. We're on a whole bunch of different places. Help us spread the love. We don't take advertising. We don't, have revenue.
You can tell because we wouldn't even be able to agree on who would advertise with us based on today's episode.
They would all be like, I don't know. You guys sound a little cagey. But anyways, like, share, subscribe, please. We would really, really appreciate it. Bookmark. All of that stuff, bang those buttons, show some love and help share, go FUD Yourself with others.
Monday, we do a news wrap up. So you can go touch roundup, rodeo. Monday's a news rodeo so that you can go camping or something. I don't know what people do with their lives. But we don't. We stay online and we look at the news all weekend. So you don't have to. So come back and join us on Monday.
So have a great weekend. Enjoy the weekend. Ceara,